All right, welcome back. We are with Debbie Cox Denova once again. Good vibes time. You know it. It's all good. Debbie, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
All right, so I saw the topic today, and it really interests me.
Yes.
Mastering body cues.
Mastering body cues. So this is kind of an extension on a conversation we've already had about high vibrational hand signals and body signals. There were so many people who were interested in this topic that I thought I would throw a little bit more about this in there, because experts pretty much agree that about 70 to 93% of our communications are nonverbal. So we're wired to actually read people and their signals, and it's really powerful when you do, because when you're able to increase, what we're basically talking about is increasing our interpersonal intelligence. So we know about IQ, right? But there's also the interpersonal, the PQ, the emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is actually really important because on average, people who with high emotional intelligence make about $29,000 more. They have a higher satisfaction in life. We are people, right? We're wired for each other.
Right.
So in increasing our own PQ, there are two things that we need to think about. Decoding, so picking up cues from other people, and also encoding. What signals are we sending out to people? And so some of these things that I'm going to share today, hopefully you can use them both to read what people are actually feeling and thinking, and also to use them so that you can convey what it is that you want to convey to someone else. So before I say that, I want to say two things. First of all, what do you think? There was a study done by Van Sloan on teenagers about popularity. What do you think determined the most popular students in this study?
Witty.
So funny.
Yeah.
Okay, that could be one of them.
Okay.
What they actually found is that the people who were the most popular actually liked the most people. Right? Being interested in other people. And this makes sense because people want to feel safe around other people. So the people who smiled and said hello the most in the hallway, they actually got rated as more popular. So being interested in people is really important, and understanding that we are contagious. So there was a study that was done on first-time skydivers. They had first-time skydivers run on a treadmill and sweat. Okay, and they collected the sweat on sweat pads. Then they had them change into fresh clothing, and then they went skydiving, and afterward they did the same thing, fresh sweat pads running on a treadmill. Then they had some unwitting people, not knowing what they were smelling, smell the two sweat pads, and they did brain scans on them. And what they found, interestingly enough, is that when these people smelled the sweat pads that were associated with pre-skydiving, the part of their brain, the fear part of their brain actually activated. So chemically, we pick up on other people's experiences of fear, sadness, anger, all of the things. So we're chemically picking it up, and also we're reading cues.
So I guess when you're confident too, you give out a different pheromone than when you have fear? Is that what it is?
Absolutely. And you can do something about it, because we talked about how psychology has an impact on your physiology, but physiology also has an impact on your psychology. So confident people typically are looking around the room. They feel safe to look around the room. They have much more smooth hand gesture. They use their hands more.
They work the room.
They work the room. They're confident. They have command over themselves. But let's say we're talking to someone, okay? And let's pick up on shame. Shame, the universal thing that people do who are ashamed is they'll lightly touch their forehead, okay, which makes sense, kind of like hiding their eyes. And in fact, hiding your eyes often means shame or disappointment or something happened. There was a study in 1974 on blind children, and they found that even blind children, when they heard disappointing news, they didn't cover their ears, they actually covered their eyes. So this is like, we're talking about paleocircuitry. It's not a taught thing. This is something that is wired within us. So if someone slightly touches the side of their face, then you know they're probably experiencing shame, and so maybe you can adjust your communications accordingly so that you can make them feel more comfortable.
Yeah, and I guess everybody has their mechanism. When my friends like to imitate me on the news desk, they'll say the funny stuff, but they always do this with their hands.
Exactly.
And I got conscious of it after. I said, do I really do that? They say, you're always doing this with your hands. And I'm going, okay, so now I'm like...
No, it's great. Using your hands is a really great, like the most confident people are using a lot of hand gestures. We talked about this. They're using about twice the number of hand gestures as someone who is not as confident and not as memorable. And if you think about this is because it lightens the cognitive load when you're communicating with someone. If I'm saying I have a small idea, right, this sort of underscores my point right here, and it makes it so it's easier for you to understand. So keep using your strong hand gestures.
All right, I'll still do it. I'm always talking like this, doing that. So when when people find something that's really not to their advantage on a cue,
Yes.
can they reprogram themselves?
Yes, absolutely. So you're saying that if you're communicating out to someone and you're noticing body language.
Say you're pointing to somebody.
Yes.
People don't like to be pointed
People
at.
don't like to be pointed out. That's correct. So if you can learn, for example, that is one of the most hated hand gestures, by
Yeah.
the way. So if you're making a point and you tend to use your finger like this, know that it may be off-putting to whoever you're talking to, and you can just as easily gesture like over there with an open hand, or you can underscore a point by doing the OK symbol that we talked about before. If you're talking to somebody and you notice that they do body blocking, so crossing their arms, all of a sudden, right? They were open, they were communicating, and all of a sudden they're body blocking. They're crossing their arms, or they're taking their notebook or their purse, they're clutching it and covering up their torso. Something that was said in the communication likely is creating insecurities, or they are no longer trusting, right? And so it's good then you can explore what might have just been said and what's causing them to all of a sudden block themselves from you.
Well, you're on some good stuff here. Yeah, mastering cues and universal gestures.
Yes.
I've had people before that tell me they know what I'm thinking because I always sort of rub the forehead, and it's just that's where I feel like the energy
Yeah.
is. So I don't know if that people have different energy points when they're thinking, or when they're anxious, or when they're energetic.
Yes.
When their mind is in the morning. I could be laying in bed just doing this and going, I got an idea.
Yeah.
And if people would just see me doing that, they say, boy, that looks odd, but that's the energy.
That's it. And
Cool.
oftentimes it's an unconscious thing, but if you understand that there is science behind this, and there are universal, not only gestures, hand gestures, feet gestures, the way that we move our body, but micro expressions. Dr. Paul Ekman actually identified 7 universal micro expressions. So and a micro expression is like a flash of a moment where you notice something, like maybe they wrinkled their nose, which is disgust, right?
Right.
Or if they disagree with something, or they have a different idea, maybe they purse their lips and right? Like this little
Yeah.
slight.
Or they twinkle their eye.
Or they twinkle their eyes, or
Right.
lift their eyebrow. Like raising the eyebrows is one where you're curious, you're interested, you're engaged, right? And in what the other person is saying, it's universal. Like you're trying to take in more. Like tilting your head to the side is also a sign of interest. So slight tilt, and if you have slight tilt with the triple nod that you're demonstrating right now, so 1, 2, 3, you're actually saying I'm interested in what you're saying. Keep going, right?
Yeah.
So the 7 micro expressions, let me see if I can remember them. The 7 micro expressions, there are only 2 that are positive. So happiness and excitement are 2 of the positive ones. And then you have fear, disgust, contempt, anger, and sadness. So watch when you're talking to somebody, because sometimes their face will betray them. Like they'll be saying specific words, but you notice little slight contemptuous look, a slight look of sadness or anger, and you can read and trust into those intuitively, so that you can speak to whatever their concerns might be, or whatever might be happening on the inside of them.
And I think everybody, especially bosses, have a trigger that if the employees would figure out, okay, which avenue to go down, it works better. But everybody has a trigger, don't they?
Yes, absolutely.
And
yes.
you got to learn how, if it works in your favor, roll with it. If it doesn't, you might have to do a little training or maneuvering.
Exactly. Now, there's one universal hand gesture that means confidence, just one. What do you think it might be?
A hand gesture? Okay.
Steepling. So fingers are straight and at the top like this. This is the universal sign of confidence. And again, with blind children in that 1974 study, even blind children, when they're in a confident position, they do steepling. So this is a way to convey confidence, but also to read someone who's feeling confident. What about someone who's rubbing their hands? What does that mean? Rubbing my hands.
They're buying time. They're not comfortable.
They might be concerned about something, worried about something, and something. Usually, when someone's wringing their hands or rubbing their hands, something's wrong, right? Like something, and especially if it's open hands and they're actually interlacing and they're rubbing like this. Now, something's really wrong. Something's really wrong.
You know what I notice on the desk all the too? If somebody has a pen, and so that's why we don't put these kind of pens near people anymore, because they do that. Now, I've been on so long, I just don't hit it. But sometimes when it's happening during the interview and I'm hearing it in the IB, I want to go stop clicking your pen.
Yes, repetitive behaviors mean that the brain is dealing with stress of some sort. So watch when people are like, the clicking of the pen or, biting of the nails. If there's a repetitive pattern, it means the brain is dealing with stress in some way, shape, or form. And that is usually how it comes out.
That's some cool stuff. Because I when I'm listening to somebody, or I'm really like in a restaurant and a group is talking, sometimes I do this. Because that's a very comfortable
Yes.
place for me to be. It's almost like a kickstand.
Yes,
for your head.
exactly. And sometimes you really do need to look at the context and understand, because sometimes you're body blocking when you cross your arms, and other times you're just doing something that feels really comfortable. You're giving yourself a self-hug. And a lot of people will cross their arms just because it's a comfortable gesture. But if you've been noticing someone being open, like I said, and then all of a sudden they're in a closed-off position, now you're looking at context and you're going, maybe this person, especially if they're giving other signs, if they're covering their mouth. When you cover your mouth, usually it means that you're trying to keep yourself from saying something that you're not supposed to say, or you just said something that you weren't supposed to say.
Right.
All right, so like
Well, you might be a little
covering-
shy.
You might be a little shy, exactly. If you're insecure, you're worried about something, a lot of times, and this goes back to, again, big cat days, right? Being attacked. You're going to cover your suprasternum notch right here, okay? So you're sort of covering your neck,
Right.
like you're insecure that you might be attacked in some way, right?
Wow.
So, but for women who are flirting, oftentimes they'll expose and elongate their neck, right? They'll kind of they'll tip their head to the side like this. Maybe they'll combine it with the eyebrows going up, but like
Right.
kind of a flirty look, and they'll expose the neck, and that usually means that they are.
You look like
flirting.
you practice that every now and then. That's cool stuff.
Yes.
And so, for people, just be cognizant, especially if you're looking for something, or if you're looking for a business partner, if you're looking for a partner for life, if you're looking for a lot of different things, look for the different signs.
Look for the different signs. Increase your PQ. Learn people. Be interested in conveying, safety cues to other people, and picking up on their cues so that you can create more safety for them and connection.
That is good stuff. You see, that's why we bring Debbie on Good Vibes. She does a great job, and we're going to have her in next week for a whole nother session. I can't wait to see what it is, so it's always interesting. We'll see you again on another Good Vibes.